Glad to have you here, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, for sure.
Want to dive into some of these new names and on the roster and all that, but we'll talk about you a little bit as well. I said, Danny, what's a good question for Danny Beal? What's a good question for Austin Knight? And he said, you remember those Dos Equis commercials? He is the most interesting man in the baseball facility. And I said, really? He's such a laid back, calm dude, which I don't know you personally.
Right.
I just know you from here. But I think he was talking more about just kind of your background, SEC, playing for Cliff, just kind of what you've been through, and now still a young guy, but now almost a veteran in the coaching game. So I don't know. You've lived a baseball life, I guess, is what he said.
Yeah, I absolutely have. Really, growing up in the household I grew up in, my dad was a high school coach for 30 years. My grandfather was a football coach. My uncle's a college basketball coach. And
Wow.
so sports were always a really big thing in the Knight household. And so, which I'm thankful for, because really all of my memories growing up come from the sport, you know, which is where the passion comes from, to be honest. But yeah, I've been super fortunate.
And sports are great. I mean, it brings people together, not just like the fan bases and communities, but I still have buddies that were on my 8-9 team and now 10, 11, 12 team. So it can do a lot of great things and a lot of memories. And even watching sports, I was talking to Coach Palumbo, a fellow Washington fan, yesterday about just kind of brings back memories of going to RFK with my dad back in the day. And it's just cool what sports can do.
Yeah, those are the things you never forget. And probably those buddies you play with when you were 9, 10, 11 years old, you probably don't talk to them every day, but when you'll get together,
memories.
It's like you never left them, right? And so it's definitely an outlet for so many people that can create such good memories and such good experiences for people, and really drive how people go about their life to this point. So.
It's great to have you here, Coach Palumbo here, Coach Lartigue back. Some very familiar names on the staff, along with of course Franny and Pack and those guys, because continuity is becoming more and more difficult in college athletics, especially when you look at the rosters. But at least you have that in the dugout there with the coaches. How important is that?
No doubt, and you see it if you have social media. You see how much turnover there is every year in every sport, really. And I think just, number one, our coaching staff is awesome. The people in our offices in the dugout with us are tremendous human beings. And so that makes going to work extremely enjoyable, because, like any job, if you're going to work with a bunch of jerks and you don't like being around, then it's going to be a miserable experience for you. But just, now knowing, Coach Lartigue since we played together at Ole Miss, and Coach Goblin since, he coached me at Ole Miss, and now being with Coach Palumbo for, including the COVID season, going on this 6th season, and knowing Pack from back when he was playing. There's just a lot of familiarity and a lot of comfortability, and it just allows you to go do your job at the highest level every single day, because the people that are in there are working extremely hard, and they have your back, and you got their back.
Austin Knight joining us. Yesterday we had Ryan Meadows on. He's got the pitching catching clinic going on at Lenore Community College next weekend, and I like it because he has a hitting camp, and he doesn't just have a pitching camp. It's a pitcher-catcher camp, and without a catcher, you don't have a pitcher.
You need the catchers to be able to pitch.
So with your background and everything, how important are the catchers you bring into your staff and working with those guys?
Man, they're arguably the most important piece. Even more important than some coaches at times, because those guys they're the ones that kind of running the show on the field. And having a guy that can kind of think with you and understands the game, understands how you're trying to pitch to guys, understands the pitchers, it's just so beneficial. You think about Justin Wilcox and being in our program for as long as he was.
Yeah.
When he went out there, man, you never had a doubt about him being on the same page, being locked in with the pitcher, understanding what it took to help those guys perform at the highest level. And so just having somebody back there that can understand the flow of the game and stay in rhythm with the game is crucial. And it's hard to have a good team if you don't have a good catcher.
On that note, we saw some Walker Barron last year. Looks like you brought in a veteran as well. What does the catcher position look like for ECU this season?
So we got 3 guys now. So obviously Walker's back for his sophomore year. John Collins is basically a 35-year-old catcher for us now. He's old. He's been in college for a long time. Has some juice in the bat. And then Michael Klinich is a freshman from Orlando, and all three guys are talented and work extremely hard. And really, I've seen a great jump from Walker behind the plate, and he's definitely working extremely hard to be on the same page with those pitchers and ask questions and to understand what we're trying to do with each guy. But Walker's super talented. He's really gotten a lot better of receiving and blocking the baseball, and he's always had a tremendous arm back there. And so excited to see those three guys go to work this spring and obviously continue to work with our pitching staff and get them to be as good as they can possibly be.
Someone asked on the chat yesterday when Coach Palumbo was here about Jake Hunter and had some positive news regarding Jake, but can you give us an update on where he is?
Yeah, for sure. So Jake is going to face live hitters this weekend for the first time since the injury, and so his rehab has been awesome. He's really been on schedule the whole time. Knock on wood, has not had any setbacks to this point, and really looks tremendous. He's taken this time to get his body in the best shape that he's ever been in, and now the throwing protocol that he's been under it's been pretty heavy. Like those return to throws. It's a lot to go through, and so his arm is in tremendous shape as well. And so I think I'm just more excited of the fact that he's in a great place. He's healthy now, and he's going to obviously continue to be built up moving into the season, and even in the early parts of the season, it will still be a build for him. It's not like he's going to roll out there on opening day and go throw 7 innings or anything like that. But excited for him. He's such an awesome kid, and he's been with me for 4 years, so that's my guy. That's my guy. I love him to death, and we've been through it together. And so excited to see, number one, how much he's developed as a leader, but number two, that he's going to be healthy and be able to impact this pitching staff in a high manner.
Coach, let me ask you what it's like having a guy like Colby Wallace. You kind of go to him out of necessity towards the end of last year, and he shows what he can do on the mound. And Palumbo kind of joked that you guys kind of play tug of war of, hey, I need him. No, I need him. So how about him as a pitcher going into this year? Will he be used, and kind of what do you see from Colby?
Yeah, I think he'll probably be used in a similar manner that you saw at the end of the year last year. Colby is awesome, super competitive, and really this winter and even into January with his throwing is the first time that we've really built him up more as a pitcher than an infielder. Now, he's obviously going to play the infield, right? But in the fall, I'm more hands off with him. Let him go get his reps on the infield. Let him go get his at bats. He'll throw an inning here and there. And then, once we gave him a little bit of rest in November, when he started throwing again, we built his arm back up as a pitcher. And so he's been, off the mound. He'll face some live hitters this weekend as well. But yeah, I see a similar role, kind of a stopper in the bullpen, a guy that we can bring in to go fill up the zone and go attack hitters, because that's what his strengths is. There's no fear in Colby. He's competitive. He's going to go and he's going to give you some quality outs for sure.
Well, I guess we think from the outside, all right, what's the guy going to do from February to May, June during the season? But the off-season planning has got to be a big part of it, right? Like how much you want these guys to throw, how much you want them to rest. How kind of intricate is that part of what you do?
It's very intricate. And so basically, when you come here in the fall, really all the freshmen, the young guys, they're built up from the summer up until the end of August. And so once we hit kind of September, we'll start working off the mound and go 4 weeks of bullpen work. And, that's the time that we're getting them into our system. We're not changing a ton of things at that point. But they're all expected to throw in the fall. Now, with our returners, let's say they go pitch in the summer or something of that manner, because there is experiences during the summer you want guys to go do, Team USA, Cape Cod League, or whether you're a freshman that didn't pitch a lot, you need to go get some innings. And so once they finish up in the summer, depending on what their workload looks like, it's more of a year process of like, hey, this is kind of the amount of innings that we want to keep you at. And if you hit that before you get back in the fall, then you're going to take some time in the fall to get in the weight room, not throw the baseball, and we'll build you up later in the fall and kind of attack the things that we need to get better at, right? And so they kind of get bucketed off. It'll be, 3 buckets of guys who maybe they'll have a shortened fall, maybe it'll be a later fall where they're pitching in the fall towards the back end of the fall. There's the younger guys and the guys who need the innings who are going to pitch the entire fall, and then you'll have those returners who, it'll be more specific for what they need and how much rest they have. But the planning process of it is, of course, is like you said, intricate.
Yeah, you're tracking guys during the game, during the year, obviously, but also during the offseason.
During the offseason, how many stressful throws did you have? How many stressful innings did you have? Did you throw a light load in the spring and then a heavy load in the summer, and then you're coming in the fall and you're taxed, right? So like we want to make sure that our guys are able to compete at a high level for sure.
In a perfect world, it's a video game. Everybody's got 99 stamina and ready to go for February, but this is real life. So how about that, Coach? How are we health-wise with the staff as a whole?
We're in a good place. We're in a good place for sure. We had a couple of guys just with some nagging, persistent injuries, such as guys like Brett Antolik, who had a hip procedure in October, who's working his way back, and a couple of guys that we shut down that were in the fall that were working our way back. But pretty much the majority of our staff, outside of those few guys, are going to be facing hitters this weekend, and pretty much the rest of those guys outside of Antolik probably will be ready for opening weekend. It's looking like, as long as everything continues to go the way that we want it to go, for sure.
Not a ton of recognizable names with this staff. I see D'Lo, I see Ethan Norby, Jaden Winter, guys like that. We mentioned Jake Hunter, so there are a few, of course, but a lot of new faces on this list. Well, I'll talk about some of the returners first. Ethan Norby, put him in some high-stress situations as a freshman, and we saw him come up big. How excited are you for him to grow even more?
Really excited, and I think that experience is huge, but also excited because we've addressed some things that he needed to address, and he's a better product now. And so even than what he was as a freshman, which I know that's crazy to say because he was a freshman All-American last year, but I really feel like he is a better pitcher. There's more power in there. He's throwing harder. His off-speed pitches are better. He's still commanding it at a high clip. He's doing, he's really made a pretty substantial jump, and we've added some things with some deception and whatnot, but excited to see him for sure. And he finished the fall on a really high note and has really just taken that and leapfrogged into the spring and has looked awesome so far.
Danny said that Ethan is a guy that can kind of get in his own head at times. Like, yes. All these guys are individuals, so do you treat it that way? Like, I can say something to Ethan that maybe I can't say to Jackson DiLorenzo, that kind of thing?
Those two are kind of similar, to be honest with you. But yeah, absolutely, you have to, right? It's like any human relationship. Yeah. If I treat you like I treat whoever, then you gotta make sure that you're reaching the individual and making sure that you're getting your message apart. And yeah, Norby is certainly that kind of guy, and so he has to stay in a more competitive mindset more often, because as soon as he starts getting his head about things or see some expectations, letting that kind of not worry him, but sit on his shoulders, then he is not free on the field, right? And so everybody is different, though, and that's part of being a former catcher and being a coach's son. You got to wear a bunch of hats. You got to wear a bunch of hats. You have to be able to reach these kids and and be more than just the coach on the field. Be the friend off the field, the guy that they can come to for advice, they can sit in the office and shoot the bull and hang out some. I think that's important, because whenever you do have something of importance to say, they're willing to listen to it.
Austin Knight joining us. Johnny Stats is checking in. Johnny Robertson, he says ECU is the only pitching staff in the nation that has had at least 625 strikeouts in each of the last 4 seasons. Congratulations, Coach, on the job well done. I don't know where he gets this stuff from, but it's usually accurate. So.
A coach is only as good as his players, I'll tell you that. When you have Trey Savage rolling out there, it makes it a lot easier.
Johnny does, and speaking of that, he says in 4 years you've had 2 pitchers drafted in the first round, 1 in the second round. Who on this roster could possibly work their way into that situation in the future?
Yeah, I think that you've got a handful of guys, really. That's the thing that is exciting about this pitching staff. And though it is inexperienced, there's a lot of very talented arms on this staff. And so you talk about, I know people have talked about him already, but Sean Jenkins is, I don't want to toot his horn because I'll have to bring him back down tomorrow, but he's really one of the most talented freshmen that we've ever had, and he's younger than he's supposed to be at this age, and works as if he wants to be a major leaguer one day. And so you have guys like that. Brett Antolik, who is a transfer from Texas A&M, has got just some of the best pure stuff that we've really had here, and that was even on a messed up hip this fall. He's running the ball up to 96 miles an hour with really good secondary pitches. And so I think, over time, now, like anything, those things take time, and it takes experience, and it takes going and doing it a little bit. But over time, you can certainly see a couple of guys transform themselves into fairly high draft picks in the future.
I'm looking at heights here, 'cause as you mentioned, Antolik 6'3", you got Hunter listed at 6'4", Jaden Winter, tall guy, like. And then you got D'Lo, who's listed at 6 foot, maybe. I don't know. But, like, is there a frame you recruit or you'd rather have, or does it matter? If you can pitch, you can pitch.
I think in the recruiting process, you're looking for multiple things. And so you're looking for durability. You're certainly looking for a frame that is imposing, that is that you're going to look out there and be like, oh, man, that's a big physical guy on the
mound. See Trey or Gavin, you get a little nervous, I would think, going to the box.
That's right. Especially, with right-handed arms. That's something that you're definitely looking for. Left-handers don't fall from trees too often, so you just got to go get the best ones available.
Not a lot of Randy Johnsons.
Man, I wish we had a couple more. I watch videos of that guy all the time. Yeah. It's like, I don't know how anybody ever hit him.
Yeah.
But with right-handed arms, you're certainly looking for a frame. You'd like them to be tall, of course, but it's got to be a durable, strong frame, one that you feel like you can continue as they get into college to fill out and get stronger and put on weight with. And so that's definitely something you're looking for. And then from the pitching side of things, you're looking for, just like you would be with the position player, you're looking for a tool set that's going to translate immediately. And so whether that's a fastball with big carry that he throws hard and can command, or it's a really, really good slider or a really good breaking ball, or it's a combination of all of it where a guy can really pitch and commands his own and limits freebies and all that stuff. And so there's certainly a profile that in recruiting that Coach Palumbo and myself and Coach Godwin, we put forth and we look for sure.
Austin Knight joining us. Let's take a break. We'll go another 10 minutes or so with Coach Knight, talking baseball with ECU pitching coach Austin Knight. Coach, what is how does it work when a pitcher wants to add pitches, or when you want a pitcher to this offseason, hey, let's work on something? Do they go to you? Do you go to them? Is it a mix? How does it work when guys want to add something to the arsenal?
I think it's a little bit of both. It depends on kind of what they have in that moment, right? It's like, what does your mix look like right now? How can we make it better? Is there a pitch that we can add that helps bridge the gap between your fastball and your changeup, or your fastball and your slider? And luckily now we have so many resources, and we have TrackMan, which really spits out ball flight data, and we use it for every bullpen, and we have video systems, and we have so many resources that we can utilize that it's very easy to tell if a pitch is good or if a pitch is bad, and if we need to go in a different direction with it, right? And so seldom is it a player just coming up and saying, hey, I want to throw this pitch, because most of the time I'm just going to say, I don't know about that, right? Because they're going to say, well, I'm going to say, why? And they're not going to have a good answer most of the time. But usually it's like, hey, this is what you do extremely well. This is what your best secondary pitch is right now. Now, our goal is to make your best two pitches even better by not having to utilize them as much. So let's add a little cutter in here. Let's add a little, change up or split or whatever. And a lot of that has to go with the biases that each pitcher has and what their limitations are physically and what they're good at physically, to be honest. Because some guys can throw a 92-mile-an-hour slider and some guys can't. And it's not something that you're going to just be able to teach into them, right? And so it all has to do with the specifically with the player and what we're trying to accomplish with each guy.
This is a total, fan eating a pizza, watching the game question. I'll go into it's not a great question, but I do want I asked Danny Bill this, and he had a pretty good answer. I want to ask you, why do more guys, if they don't have the high end velocity, and maybe more so guys that are at the end of their career, but it could work for a Danny Bill or somebody, learn to throw a knuckleball? What's the answer to that, Coach?
Because people don't practice hitting knuckleballs, and knuckleballs, you can't guess what it's going to do. If you've ever
even if you're throwing it,
if you're throwing it,
right.
If you've ever caught a knuckleball, it's man, it is impossible, right? Because there's just 0 RPMs. The ball doesn't spin. And so to the eye, it looks like it's going here, 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 and then it's over here. And, we watched as a team, we watched the documentary, the Red Sox documentary on Netflix. It's an awesome documentary. And Tim Wakefield was all over it, obviously, God rest his soul. But his catcher, Doug Mirabelli, back in the day, had the humongous catcher's mitt, like a first base mitt, double the size. because that ball's just dancing and everything else. And so I think it's a way to not tax your arm, but also like it's a very like that pitch performs extremely well if you're able to have someone who can catch it and you can throw it into the strike zone.
There's a reason there's so. I mean, we bring up R.A. Dickey. He did it late in his career, won a Cy Young, and Tim Wakefield was great at it as well. Obviously, one thing Danny did do that you can do the arm angles, and I feel like I talk more to hitters about this. Like, do you change your stance? Do you do anything different? I don't ask pitchers that a lot, but how about that as far as the fundamentals and what they do, and maybe you notice something. Hey, let's try it from this slot. How do those conversations work?
Yeah, I think it's all again is player specific. So with Danny's gonna give me some crap about saying this, but Danny after his sophomore year. He was just a generic stock right-hander, like didn't really do anything that could get hitters out at a really high clip.
Yeah.
And so we were more so like, hey, we've got to figure something out or it might not work here, And so, credit to him. He worked hard at it and he was able to maximize that. And, people may sleep on Danny, but he's really one of the best relievers that's ever pitched at East Carolina through the last 2 years with the amount of appearances and what he was able to do for our team. But there's also guys that, they grow up training a specific way. But when they get to you, you start realizing that maybe they're moving out of pattern, right? Maybe they want to move more rotationally, and they're trying to climb the arm up because they're trying to get a vert on the fastball. We have a freshman now, Tyler Brashear. He was kind of that guy. He's wanting to move this way, and he would just pull fastballs from over the top. So he dropped his arm angle, and he's been much, much better ever since, right? And so it's more about, how your body wants to move and what can we do to make you unique, right? Because if you got a team full of stock right-handed pitching, you're not gonna be too successful, I don't believe.
Austin Knight joining us. We'll talk about. So I didn't know this rule was going into effect. Is there a new double bag rule? He said. Jamie says, "Will ECU be using double bags? Is it up to the conferences?"
Yeah, we're gonna be using it. We have it out there now because they're gonna use it in postseason baseball anyway, and so they leave it up to the conferences and they vote on it. But we're gonna be using it for the entirety of the season.
So for people that don't know, this is the bag in foul territory.
It's the softball bag. Yeah. And so it's creating a new running lane.
Yeah.
And so the batter is now, they'll have an orange base on the right side, white base in the normal place. And so the runner will be now, they have to run through the orange base so that because there's been so many, just with the rule with the runner's lane, there's been so many issues where guys may bunt the ball and they may be out of the running lane for 2 seconds and then, they're in the running lane after that, but they still are called out in replay because they're out of it at some point. And so they just nipped that in the bud, basically.
We made a pretty big deal about the pitch clock when it first came around, and I will say as an observer, I can tell the games are moving quicker. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for the players playing, but is it kind of an afterthought now, or is it still something you got to work on, talk about to your guys?
You still got to practice it, especially with the freshmen, right? Part of our philosophy from a pitching perspective was always to go fast, right? We always wanted to move fast, we wanted to work fast, we wanted to spend less time getting the sign and all that anyway. And so I feel like that transition wasn't a big deal for us, but when freshmen come in, they have no understanding of it. They don't know how it works, and they also don't realize that you actually have a lot more time than you think you do. Especially, now
you don't need to rush yourself.
You don't need to rush yourself. Yeah. It doesn't like your tempo is your tempo. You don't have to worry about trying to speed on the rubber and throw the pitch. Especially now with electronic, pitch calling and all those things, it makes it really, really easy for our guys because we can get the sign in there immediately. They don't have to toe the rubber, then get it. And so, I wouldn't say it's an afterthought because you still got to talk about it and teach it, but it's just something you got to get in rhythm with, and then you don't really think about it or worry about it too much after that.
Are ECU pitchers allowed to shake you off? And if so, how often do you get shook off?
Absolutely. They can, whatever, honestly, truly. It's not something that I don't really care about that as long as they have a reason for what they're trying to do or they didn't have feel for that pitch, because ultimately they're the ones that are on the field and they're the ones that are making the pitch. I'm in the dugout calling it, right? And so, obviously we have the data, we have the information. There's certain guys, when I'm preparing for teams and we're preparing the pitchers and this team and the staff for who we're going to play, there's certain guys who have traits that they're really good at hitting specific pitches. And so we'll say, hey, listen, I know your best pitch is your slider or your changeup, but we can't overuse it to this guy. You can still use it, but we can't overuse it. And so they'll have that in the back of their head sometimes. But when in doubt, man, like any pitch that they have full conviction in,
right,
like I'm all for, right? Like go throw that pitch, dude. Go get him out. I'm never going to say a word. Every time Trey Savage shook me off last year, he struck the hitter out every single time. Yeah, I told Heath Blackman that sitting in the dugout. He's like, he'd shake me off with 2 strikes every once in a while, and I'd be like, well, this is going to be a strikeout. So, hey, we'll boys go pack it up. We're getting off the field here.
Austin Knight joining us. Coach, before we let you go, I know Pirate fans do want to hear more. You've mentioned some of the new names, but who are some other guys, some new faces you're excited about on your pitching staff?
Yeah, so we got a transfer from Oklahoma. His name's Brad Pruitt. Awesome arm, really good stuff. Let's see, Ethan Young is a transfer, a junior college transfer with really, really big stuff. You know, is anywhere 93, 96. All those guys are power right-handers who just really need to get out there and get some experience and continue to learn, but they've looked awesome. Freshman-wise, you know, we talked about Sean plenty. Bradley Zayak is another freshman from Virginia. Throws a ton of strikes from an interesting arm angle with 4 pitches. Ian White has a really, really good slider that I feel like can get right-handers out immediately. There's plenty of them, right? I mean, we can go down the roster and I can give you the breakdown. Let's just keep going.
And do you plan on like these guys getting action? Like, is it kind of up in the air right now?
100%. Yeah. That's the beauty of, you know, you coming into a season and you not having as many experienced arms.
Yeah.
Is, well, the only way they're going to get experience, like coaching, the only way you're going to get experience is by doing it.
They'll go to prove it.
Yeah, go prove it. And that's, you know, early in the season, that's, you know, we're gonna put some guys out there in some situations that they're gonna succeed, but they'll grow from either way.
Makes you nervous but excited too, right?
Yeah, you know, whatever. Right? It makes me excited about the future, right? Yeah. It makes me excited to get these young guys out there and get some of these, you know, transfers out there and just get them to fill our environment, feed off our environment. And, you know, with this team specifically, because there's so many new players, like we're going to be better at the end of the season than we are at the beginning.
Sure.
That doesn't mean we're going to suck at the beginning of the season, because I don't see that happening, right? But at the end of the season, whenever these guys get experience and they get confidence and they understand who they are even better and what this looks like they're going to be so much more seasoned. And, you know, that ultimately is kind of the recipe you want, is to learn the game and hit your stride towards the end of the year anyway.
Yeah, should be a fun ride, man. I'm looking forward to it. Coach Austin Knight joining us here inside the Pirate Radio studios. Coach, we appreciate it. We'll see you media day. We'll probably see you. We might see you on the Danny Beal show, I heard.
Yes.
If he can lock you in.
Yes. Well,
make sure he's paying.
He needs to call my people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like Danny just like jumps in and is like, hey, you want to do it here? And I'm like, dude, I got a family. And so I think we're doing it on Monday, but
Good deal.
We'll see about that.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it, man.